This video demonstrates Sample Exam 1, Question 1. You can download the sample exam as a Word file from Blackboard. The data for Question 1 contains all the NFL players who ever played in the sport from 1900 onwards. So as you can see, this file contains two sheets. The first sheet is the NFL players data. The second sheet is the NFL players dictionaries. The dictionary tells you each column what's the variable name and what does that variable represent. So as we can see in this data, usually when you have a data, you want to scroll it down to see how big the data is. All the way here, you can see that there are more than 25,000 NFL players in this data. And the variables, we have their names, position, birthday, from 2 years, and a bunch of other game stats. So that's the first thing you should do, getting familiar with what the data looks like. Now let's examine the question. First are some basic summaries. Freeze the panel on the first row and the first column. So put the mouse cursor here, click and go to View and Freeze Panels. So choose the first option, Freeze Panels. Now you can see that you can scroll down, but you will still be able to see what the variable names are. Then summarize the requested summary using the appropriate Excel formulas in the highlighted cells. So they are here. As you can see, we have the requested summaries, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, and your answer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. First, the question asks for the number of players in position QB, quarterback, with larger than 500 passes completed. So before we do that summary, you can see that position repeatedly appears. So it's probably more convenient for us to name this. So now let me just name some of these columns so that we can use them. And for now, I'm going to name this area from column A to column N. Control-Shift down, and then go to Formulas, Create from Selection, and you can do both. We don't need this, so we'll just name the columns using the top row. Click OK, and you can check the names have been provided. And that refers to range. They are consistent. Click OK, and now we go to this to do the summary. And as you see, the first one is number of players in position QB, quarterback, with larger than 500 passes completed. Two conditions to count the number of it, and then we do count ifs. And the criteria is, since we already named them, the position, comma, is, let me roll this a little bit further, QB, quote, and comma, the second condition is passes completed larger than 500. So we already named that, passes completed. We can double click here, comma, and quote, larger than 500, and then quote, and parenthesis, enter. So there are 260 quarterbacks like that. And then second, number of players in position QB with larger than 500 passes completed and larger than 50 passing touchdowns. So this would be equal to, again, count ifs. Position is QB and passes completed. Double click. Oops, comma here. passes completed, comma, and quotation marks larger than 500, close up, and comma. The last one is passing touchdowns. Passing touchdowns, double click, comma, and quote larger than 50, close quote, parenthesis, and enter. So out of these 260 with 500 or more passes, only 206 of them have larger than 50 passing touchdowns. It's really not that easy, huh? And the next, total games played by players in position RB, running back. So here we need to sum up the number of games played. So we're going to do sum if, parenthesis, and the range that for this condition is again position. So position, comma, and the position is running back, quote RB, and comma. The sum range we want is actually here. When you roll back, you can see that it's in games played. So we can continue typing in games played, enter. And there are 95,597 games played by running backs. All right, so next is average NFL player career length in years. So we want to calculate how many years they played. We have the from and the 2 years of the players. So to do this, we're going to create a new column. First, left click and then right click on column F and do insert. It's going to create a new column. We're going to call this new column years. It equals to the end of the career in column E minus the beginning of the career in column D. And enter. So double click here on the lower right corner to copy this over. And now we can come back to calculate the average NFL career length in years. Simply using average without conditions. And the range for average is here from cell F2, Control Shift down all the way in that column, parenthesis, enter, and the number is, so the number is about 3.5 years. Next, average NFL player in position QB career length in years. So now we are going to do average if, and the condition is position in QB and comma. Let's see this better. And the average range here is again the years that we had. So here, Control Shift down, parenthesis, enter, and the average is 4.9, almost 5 years. So quarterbacks on average seems to have quite a bit longer, 1.5 years longer than average NFL players. So the next question is create a pivot table to demonstrate the number of NFL players whose birth months are January, February, etc. So here we want to do a pivot table on birth months. And we don't have birth month yet in this sheet, so we're going to create it. Right click here and insert. So we are going to create a new column called month that's equal to the month, parenthesis, of the birthday, and close up the parentheses and enter. So because this is in the year format, so it's messed up, we're going to go back to general. So that's December, that's correct. And double click on the lower right corner. So now we have created the birth month of all the NFL players. Now we can do the pivot table. Go to Insert, Pivot Table, and click OK. And let's rename this pivot table as instructed as NFL Pivot. And for the pivot table, we're going to do the month, and then we're going to drag the names into values, and we'll count the number of names. So this gives us the number of NFL players born each month. Now we're going to do a column chart based on this. So insert and a column chart. First one. Now we want to label this chart. So go to Design, Add Chart Element, Axis Titles, Primary Horizontal, go back here again, Primary Vertical, and name the primary horizontal birth month, and name the primary vertical number of players, and name the chart NFL players and birth. And these are all in the instructions of the sample exam question. So now the chart is labeled. So the next question is, different from baseball, the age cutoff month for kids who play football is usually the end of December. Do you observe something similar to the August birth effect of Major League Baseball players? So there's nothing in August, but the birth month cutoff is in December. Now we actually do observe here in January. Let me close the pivot table fields. In January, if I double click here, I can fill this with a different color. So we do actually observe in January there's a higher than other months in terms of number of players' birth months. So the conclusion is we observe January birth effect among NFL players. Again, because of the cutoff month for players at a young age. Okay, so we see the same phenomena, but in a different month. So now part C of question 1 is scatter chart. So first, create a duplicate copy of the sheet NFL players data. Use copy or move function to copy the whole sheet. So back to the sheet, right click, use move or copy, and then create copy, and let's move it to the end, and then click OK. Now we have created a new sheet and rename the copied sheet NFL2. So double click here, NFL2, enter. So now we have renamed the sheet. And add a filter to the sheet NFL2. So adding filter is in data and filters. So this is going to allow you to filter the data based on the value in each column. Now we have the filter. The next, the question asks you to use the filter to keep only the players who have position QB and have pass completed as 10 or higher and not blank. All right, so now go to positions, and we want to get all the players who have ever played position QB. So we're going to use this search function to type in QB. So now everyone who has ever played quarterback including those who have played positions in addition to quarterback, are selected. Okay, click OK. So now let's roll up. So we're going to see that now we have filtered the data. Those who never played QB no longer appears in this data set. The second criteria is those to have passes completed, now in column N, to be 10 or higher. So we're going to check off 0 until 9 and click OK. So now we are filtering out those who have low passes completed as well. Now the next is to insert a scatter chart on the data in the columns passes attempted and passes completed. So select those two columns, go to insert, and we are going to do a scatter chart here. And the first one, scatter. And now we have created a new chart. Label the axis and name the chart appropriately. So let's name the chart passes completed. You're double clicking, you can add it inside the box versus passes attempted. Okay, now we're going to label the XY axis, add chart element, axis titles, primary horizontal, primary vertical, and this x-axis is passes attempted, and then the y-axis is passes completed. Next, insert a linear trend line. So right-click on top of these dots, left-click on Add Trend Line. So by default, you're going to have a linear trend line. The instruction also asks you to display the equation of the trend line. In addition, set intercept to 0. Okay, so we did that. And now we have the trend line between passes attempted to passes completed. And then let's make the equation bigger. From previous examples, we know we can edit this equation here. X is attempted, Y is completed. Okay, and this equation basically tells you that for NFL quarterbacks, for each pass they attempt, about 59% of them is completed. So the NFL quarterbacks on average have about 60% completion rate. That completes question 1.